bear with me. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Timothy Von Rieden, better known as vonnart Online, and welcome to this weekly Wednesday live stream. I do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and I feel like they're kind of changing the format. Before it was draw whatever, but now I feel like I've been doing these follow along streams every Wednesday where I do a critique at the end, and today is going to be one of those days. So a couple weeks ago we did a drawing a male portrait study, and today I wanted to also draw a female portrait, and I wanted to do this stream originally. Well, there were a lot of ideas I had for this, but in the end I decided to go with this one and do some glamour Hollywood, and I feel like they really amp up the values and the contrast, so I thought this would be a really fun study for us to do together. And if you want to follow along with me, you can do so, and at the end of the stream you can post in our Discord, which you can find below, which is our ever-growing community of artists, and I will go ahead and do a mini critique of your work at the end of the stream. So the way that this will work, normally I do the warm-ups, but I feel like they take away from the time that we could be spent on this, and normally by the time I get to the stream, as along with maybe some of you, maybe you've drawn a little bit anyways, so we're going to kind of jump right into it. So I'm going to have a timer on the side here, and we're going to be drawing for 90 minutes. So this is going to be an hour-and-a-half study. And basically, this is going to be a free form. Ask any questions you want. They could be related to what we're working on, to art industry, getting a job, topical events, or if you want to just have some fun and talk movies or whatever. I'm always down for that. So yeah, just be sure to put @vonnart before your comment or question, and that way I can see it really easily by in between looking at the drawing and the comment section, which I will put right in front of me right now. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, Sammy. Sammy's one of our wonderful mods for our Discord. Okay, so if you guys are ready and want to follow alongside with me, grab your pencils, your digital styluses, your paintbrush, whatever you're going to be working with today, and let's go ahead and get ready to start. So before the stream started, I did make some marks on my own paper just so I have some proportion clarity. I feel like sometimes when I do live streams, my proportions are really strange, and I won't notice it until halfway through the stream because I talk and blather so much. So I gave myself a little bit of a head start. I cheated a little bit, and I drew some marks that will help me give some proportion so that when I talk, I'm not distracting myself from creating a proportional face. I'll talk about how to do that though too, to get started. Okay, you guys ready? All right, 90 minutes on the clock, and 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so oh, where's Joshua? I know he's once again at the post office. He's doing the prints. He said for sure next week, so Josh will be here next week as the mod. Okay, so when I do mark making, I try to look at the image that I'm working on, and the image that we're working on today, oh, you know what? I'll actually include it on here. But the image itself, the reference image, you can also find on the Discord, but I will put it on the stream so that you guys actually can see it. And it is the lovely Ginger Rogers. She is a starlet of yesteryear. I'm a big fan of old Hollywood, so it's no surprise that I chose this as the subject matter for a female portrait. There we go. Okay, so when I'm looking at doing the mark making, I did some erasing of my smaller lines and even like the circle behind the head. I almost always start off all my drawings with a circle, and then from there I'll kind of push and pull the forms around until I get something that feels somewhat proportional to the drawing, and I will not get anywhere near the detailing stage until much later on. So even with this, I try to give myself some landmarks to build off of. And you know what? I'm actually going to work with my mechanical pencil today. I've been having a weird love for my mechanical pencil. Nope, I take it back. As soon as I did that, I was like, this is kind of dark. I want to start off lighter. So I'm going to be working with my 2H pencils to start off with. I also have my Mono 0 eraser and my kneaded eraser. or did I call this an eraser? My 2H pencil. Sorry if I get my words jumbled from time to time. So when I'm looking at this image, because I have it pulled up on my second monitor here, I'm looking at where the darkest values are, and I'm trying to lay those in and focus on those more so than the actual details of the drawing. But I'm working so light that nothing is permanent. Nothing's laid in as like absolute. Now, knowing me, I'll probably add my own little flares of contrast in certain areas. But to start off, I try to get it somewhat realistic. Now, especially with old Hollywood, they had this way of lighting where it was very heavy contrast. Because they didn't really have color to work with, they really only had the contrast of value, and that's why you see these very heavily dark scenes with like the strip of light that passes on their face, or specifically their eyes in some cases. And maybe it's because I'm a black and white artist, or I guess that's what people would mostly consider me as. I mean, I do like working in color, and I do have fond memories of working in Photoshop. So I don't want to say I'm just a black and white artist, but I think most people associate me with pencils. I think that's why I'm so gravitated towards these old films, because they work and focus so much on that value and contrast that as a visual artist today, I can look at that as inspiration as to where to point and direct the interest in the piece. And a lot of it just has to do with heavy contrast of dark and light. So something else that's a really easy trick if you want to pop out your values is, let's say the shirt here is so bright, as you can see in the reference, you have this spot of white. I'm going to fill in the background darker to make that white pop even more. She kind of has a fold of wrinkle in her shirt here. I think it's always important to include those little subtle details in fabric to make it feel more believable. Now, something new that I've been kind of doing is I'll do this soft push of values in terms of areas around details. So even like eyes, I'll kind of like push this blurry value, because then when I go in with a sharper pencil or even my point to mechanical pencil, I'll edge out those details and they'll really pop. But to have that underlying value is so important to make them pop in the first place. Also, how are you guys doing? Are you guys having a good Wednesday? I know it's kind of a weird state of the world we're in right now, but I hope you guys on a personal level are doing well. I know I made a very strange purchase at like midnight or 1 a.m. last night. I bought a bubble machine. I apparently found that to be a very relevant and very purposeful purchase at that time of day. And I'm very excited to use it, actually. Also, though, I've been having Halloween withdrawals because last week I got caught looking at Halloween decorations on the floor of our bedroom. Josh was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm looking up Etsy Halloween decorations." I'm really excited for the fall, but I'm trying not to get too excited and miss all the joy that, you know, summer can be with like eating watermelons in the garden and things like that. But I have to admit, I'm very excited for the fall season already. So I can slowly start to see this figure come out of the paper. Because a lot of doing art is creating the illusion of depth and form through shading. So I feel like because I start lighter, I mean, I feel like a lot of artists actually do this, but they start lighter and you slowly build up those forms. And it's such a cool thing every time because you slowly start to see this figure emerge from the paper. And I never get tired of it. I just love art. I love doing art. I love the process. And yeah, it's not always going to be, home run. You're going to have duds along the way, but it makes the ones that are successful that much more worth it. Now I'm going to do the same thing where I did near her chin as her hair over here. I'm going to make it darker outside of her hair to make it pop once again. Because with these type of studies, you can do a full realism study if you would like. I'm not saying that you have to, and I know that especially near the end of these style of studies, I tend to kind of implement my own likes on contrast and how I do my gradation. So I totally get it if you want to add those little flares of your own style within it too. Because when I do the critique, I'll do the critique less on style and more on the approach and technical aspects. And if you have more of a stylized style to your work and the look of it, I'll try to give advice to the best of my ability to help your style. That way it's not just like a full realism critique. I do think there is a lot of benefits though to studying realism and then applying your style on top of. But for these type of YouTube streams, I would like to keep it more wide format so that anyone can feel they can join it without getting a bad critique just because they're not doing realism. I thought I would have to do some adjustments on the proportions, but I'm so far liking what we've got here. I actually feel like they're pretty good. I mean, I did spend a little bit of time doing the proportions before the stream started. Spent like a good 10 minutes just on edging out some of those proportions. So what's something new? Sam says, I'm looking into getting a mini projector to set up backyard movie nights. Oh, that sounds amazing. Actually, that's something I really want to do, especially exactly what you're saying, especially in the backyard when you can just have a bunch of friends over and kind of recreate the magic and feel of like a drive-in movie theater. I think that would be great. So let me know how that goes. Actually, you should put photos in the Discord when you're done, Sam. Fem says, haha, damn it, now I want a bubble machine. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it to get here, I have to be honest. I know I'm 30 years old and shouldn't be that excited about a bubble machine, but bubbles are great. I don't know how else to put it without sounding silly. They're great. What was the... Oh, so recently, me and Josh watched a few movies. We watched Uncut Gems by the Safdie brothers. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's the one with Adam Sandler. I thought it was really good. I thought, yeah, the ending could go either way for a lot of people, but overall, the movie had such a tension, and I would definitely describe it as like an uncomfortableness, but it's a ride that you want to continue to see play out. Like, you don't want to stop the ride, even though you're kind of feeling a little nauseous. That's how I would describe that movie. It was pretty great. And then on Sunday, we do these movie nights. Well, not every Sunday, but periodically we do these movie nights with my friend Kyle. And me and Josh the three of us will pick a movie. And this time it was my turn to pick the movie, so I picked The Lure. They're the lure, like a fishing lure. It's like I believe it's a Polish film, and it's with mermaids, and it's like this. Imagine if it was a dark musical with mermaids that's also a horror. That is what this movie was, and it was great. It is weird. It is vibrant. It is electric, eccentric in a lot of ways, and very different. Because if you guys have come to my streams often, you'll know that my favorite type of film nowadays are ones that are just new, that are fresh, that are different, that are ideas that I haven't seen explored before, and that's what I'm really into right now. Let's see, what do you guys see about? Hello, Falling of Heroes. I'm just dropping in. I'm drunk as hell. You're amazing. Goodbye. Well, I hope you have a good night. Get some. Or I hope you find a bed whenever you're done. Felix says, "Oh no, the nose already seems really long, but not now that I look at the reference, and her nose does seem kind of long. The angle is weird. Yeah, her whole expression is angled slightly down, so her nose does create this longer bridge, and then her nostrils are above her nose, or like the ball of the nose, so it makes the nose appear longer. Because normally when we look at people, the ball of the nose and where the nostrils are kind of on the same line, but when someone angles ever so slightly down, it just elongates their nose. Now, I think she is gorgeous, and I think the real trick will be having that harsh cast shadow underneath of her nose and not so much over rendering the actual bridge part of the nose. So maybe that will help you render it. Gabby says, I've been having trouble with finishing my drawings and projects. I could spend a lot of time redrawing and perfecting them, but I rarely have a finished piece. How can I help with that? Okay, let me resync my camera. There we go. So how can you work on that? So I get caught in this trap where I have too many projects, and I always speak in metaphors, so bear with me. I always see it as like an oven, and how many things you have on the front burner versus the back burner, and then the back burner. So I have about 11 different things going on right now, and I only work on about 2 or 3 at a time. And it's really silly of me to have announced all 11, because now there's this weird level of expectation. And then I put that level of expectation on myself, but then if I don't hit it, then I just move on to something new, because then I get frustrated that I'm so far behind. My first piece of advice was try not to talk about the projects you're working on. And in terms of your art pieces, I think it's good to have more than one at a time. At least for myself, that's really worked really well in the past. But I think it's good to kind of set some sort of a standard for yourself of like, okay, this week I got to have at least one of these pieces done. And I started timing myself. That way I know every day I'm spending a certain amount of time on each project. Now, the last month and 2 have been really weird for me because my Kickstarter finished and I haven't been keeping up with that schedule. And I have this 5-foot drawing of all mermaids that I have put on hold because I have all these commissions I need to finish. So I know on a sense of what you're going through because, yeah, I have commissions, I have my illustrated novel, I have this card deck, I don't want to say a tarot deck, but that's something I'm thinking about right now. I'm doing the preliminary sketches. Obviously, these live streams. And there's just a lot going on at once. So if you feel like you have a problem finishing drawings and trying to make them perfect, the best piece of advice I can say is done is better than perfect, especially with something that isn't commission based or isn't a something that you require to have finished in a timely manner. And oftentimes, if you move on to the next piece, you can take what you learned from the last one. If you didn't like certain things about it, apply that to your next drawing, because the more time and energy you spend perfecting one piece rather than continuing to make as many as you can, I think that can be problematic. And I was one of those artists that I wanted to redraw everything, and in college I redrew my characters like every 3 months because I learned something new in Photoshop, and I was like, well, now I got to go back and redo all the drawings I did of them. So trust me, I know where you're in, and it's okay if you do that if you can finish them. But if you're having a problem even finishing, then I think yeah, I think you need to get to a point where you feel satisfied with it and then move on to the next. And I think you got to keep doing that for a while until you kind of find your stride. Fem says, I don't like doing the dishes, but I always get excited when bubbles randomly fly around. You're never too old for bubbles. I agree. It's always a fun thing, yeah, when you're washing the dishes and you get the ones that kind of float up, because usually, obviously, the bubbles stay in the sink, but every now and then you get one that just kind of flutters, and you're like, where are you going? What are your dreams, Bubble? Like, what are your aspirations in life? Now, the real tough part are the shadows on the nose and the mouth. Oh yeah, Felix, you're saying that right now too. The contrast is so dark on the lips. Now, normally I'm not a fan of, well, no, I take that back. I am a big fan of dark lipstick on, it doesn't even have to be a female, on anyone. But specifically, there was a wedding I went to. It was one of my cousins, and she decided to wear this dark plum, like very dark plum lipstick. And it was such a bold choice. But I remember thinking of how great I thought that looked, because all of her other makeup, all of her other features, her dress was obviously white. It was very soft, and then you have this dark, dark lip. I thought it was so cool and like mysterious. So I'm hoping we can get kind of that effect with her today in the study. I actually feel like I'm pretty good to move on to my darker pencil. Let's see here. I'm gonna switch to my HB. I'm gonna sharpen this really quick. It's gonna get really loud. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. So I think first and foremost, I'm gonna focus on the eyes, because if there's one thing I've learned about doing portraits and character studies for so long, it's that you really want to make sure the eyes look good, because that's typically where people will look first and foremost when they look at a character drawing or portrait or a study like this. And if the eyes are off, it'll throw off the entire drawing. And then next week I had this idea because I went for a nature hike yesterday with Josh and my best friend Kat, and there were these really cool wood formations. And I thought, how fun would that be if on the stream next week we either look at the same wood formation, or if everyone takes a picture of a wood or a tree or bark that is in their town or whatever, and then we create creatures out of that bark and then we share them together. I thought it would be a fun little way of like doing practice for texture and materials while also still having some uniqueness and creativity with it. So I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do for the next week's stream. So if that sounds appealing to you, come to next week's. I need to focus for a second here. I'm going to get real quiet. Because of the high contrast, it's almost like her lower lid is hard to distinguish from where the skin ends and where the eyeball begins. I feel like I made her head too large. I'm gonna pull that in. But let me slim that side of her face down. There we go. And now the other eye. Julie says that would be great. Oh, wonderful. Bem says, oh my, now that you talked about your walk, I remembered cats in your Instagram stories with the Pikachu. Mm-hmm. Well, oh, actually, something really cool. I don't know if you guys are interested in this, but I love taking pictures of flowers and plants and then Googling them when I get home of like what they were and like identifying them. And I have my own little book actually in my Pikachu backpack. I got this from Hikala's Kickstarter, and it's this little witch kind of notebook, but it's a drawing pad. So in it, I draw the different, oh, you know what, let me resync again. There we go. I draw all my findings that I find really interesting, and then I mark where it was, my geolocation. And I find this to be really fun to do, because then you can kind of identify like an area by the things that grow within it. Let's see if I can find, yeah, like at the park there was this bee on the flower I thought was really pretty. So I want to keep doing that. And then there's this app that now I don't even have to Google it when I get home. It's called Picture This. You literally take a picture of a plant and it'll identify it right there on the spot. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Josh showed it to me and I am obsessed with it. So now I want to make like maps of everywhere I go, or like not maps, but like a, what are those guides, like a herbology, oh no, what are those called? Where they have like studies of animals and plants that are in the area. Field guides? I think they're field guides. And I would love to do that, like do my own for my own personal like amusement, and then have a bunch saved for everywhere that I go from now on for like hikes and travel. So yeah. And then I'll share those on the Patreon Discord as well, because I don't necessarily think my Instagram needs to see all that kind of stuff. Oof. Okay, I think I like how this eye is going. So now her nose has a very defined dark shadow under it. And it's almost like I don't want to over render any part of this because it's so softly lit in the photo that by pushing something too dark where it's not supposed to be super dark would throw it off. I know there's not like this harsh edge here, but this is where it was like a style choice. I'm gonna push the edge a little darker. Anra says, I feel like there are values I recognize in drawings that I don't in observation drawing sessions or photo references. Do you have any tips on learning how to see values? It is difficult. I think a lot of the times taking a photo of whatever you're looking at and then bringing it into Photoshop or whatever software you have available to you that you can desaturate it. Actually, I'm thinking you can even do that with the phone now. I don't know why. I'm too old apparently. I can't even remember stuff like that. But anyways, I would desaturate it and take all the saturation out so you can see where the values lie, because sometimes values that we think would be pretty dark are often not that dark at all. So they can be very misleading. And I think that's something that you learn over time. Like I remember red, when I desaturated, I thought it was gonna be a really dark red, but then it turned out to be pretty neutral gray. And that was a very like weird lesson for my eye. I thought I was tricking my eyes, but no, that's how it actually was. So a lot of it is just learned practice, but being very acute to forcing that learning process to happen. So whether that's bringing it into Photoshop to double check the values, or staring far away from it and kind of squinting. This is what my teacher told me in college: is you look at it from far away and you kind of squint, and wherever the values are the darkest should appear to be even more contrasted, because when you squint, you're trying to loosen up the harsh details, or like the crisp fine lines, and you're just trying to look at it as like a shadow and light study. But it's really difficult to do that when you're doing a portrait, because we want to identify the portrait so bad in our minds. So our minds go and do it for us, instead of seeing all the lights and the shadows and seeing it as like a not what's a way to describe that? Not a I can't think of the word. You're looking at it not as like a person. Oh, I don't want to say that. That sounds awful. I was going to say, but as, no, I'm not even going to say it. That sounds awful. But you're looking at it, oh, there we go. You're looking at the drawing objectively. That way you can focus on the values and the artistry of it, rather than focus on the how human or how pretty it looks or any of those things. Okay, I'm going to try to get these lower lips. Get some of that reflecting shine as well. Now this one is very difficult, because she does not have a lot of forms defined on her face, which I feel like is a very, it's an easier way to render faces when you have different landmarks to build off of. But when the face is so neutral and kind of overly casted like this, where it has very neutral, soft features, it is a little more difficult to render out. So I'm hoping this is a good challenge for you guys, but I hope you're also looking at it and being like, okay, how can I work with this, because I'm probably unfamiliar with this style of softness. Now some of you might be thinking, no, this is how I render everything. This is right down my alley. For me, I'm somewhere in between. I actually like heavily darkening some areas, especially like around the nose and the eyes. So to leave this more vacant is a little weird for me. I may go in and just render it a touch, but I'm trying to stick more to this drawing as like a reference study with like tidbits of my style throughout. Yeah, she's difficult. She's got these really soft features. It was funny because when I was looking for the female portrait I want to draw this morning, I was thinking, oh, this will be easier because of how much shading we won't have to do. But in a weird twist, that actually made it more difficult. Who'd have thunk? Yeah, I gotta turn this just momentarily. Oh, let me refresh my camera really quick. I'm gonna turn this just so I can get the top of her head. Grab my 2H. This is not my 2H. I'm at that point where I can instantly tell if it's not the right pencil when I lay it down. I was using an H, not a 2H. And I never thought I'd be that person in life, be like, oh, I can tell the difference between an H and 2H, and I refuse to work with a 2H at this point, but there's a difference. As silly as that sounds, I can definitely tell the difference. Let's see here. Fem says, what was the plant identifying app called? I believe it's... Oh, what was it? It is called... Picture this. I believe... Yes, picture this. Belly Mouth. What's your favorite movie with Ginger Rogers? Oof. Well, I feel like pretty much every movie she's in, she stars alongside, what's his name? Fred Astaire. And I know I've seen a couple of them. The one that I'm thinking off the top of my head, I believe, is Top Hat or Shall We Dance? They're all kind of that same happy-go-lucky musical type feeling. I just thought she was really embodied like old classic Hollywood to me. Just professional, always styled very, very beautifully. So yeah. Eunuch says, "Oh, it is a challenge, all right." Yeah, I can imagine the face being a challenge for a lot of you guys because even streaming this, and even though I did some of the proportions before the stream started, I'm still being like, this looks a little off here. I mean, you really have to have some good foundations. I should have maybe even made that more apparent at the beginning of the stream because this is a very tough one. Hey, Ren, thank you for subscribing. And if it helps, try working with a light pencil and doing kind of like a soft pass everywhere on her face. Maybe having it be pure paper white is a little intimidating. And I know sometimes I will go through with a light pencil like this and then push some of the soft gray. And then in areas where there definitely is a highlight, like on the bridge of her nose or on her cheek or a little bit on her forehead, I'll just kind of not render that area. And sometimes having this like very, very soft gray push everywhere helps kind of balance the whole face out. Yeah, this one's all gonna come down to soft rendering. Now I feel bad because this is definitely something I feel a little more comfortable doing, but I know a lot of you are like, what the hell is this? Like, this is difficult. To be honest, I really was not thinking it was gonna be this difficult before we started. Otherwise, I might have chose something different. So I hope you guys can pull through on this one and really come out of it with something you guys are proud of, or at least maybe something that you learned from, because I guess that's really the purpose of a lot of these streams. Okay, I think I'm gonna go back in and do another darken pass because I'm not so much worried about the hair, because if I have to do the hair after the stream ends, so be it. I just want to make sure I really nail a good face here. You know what? I think I am going to switch to my 2.2 mechanical pencil. She has that little highlight on her eye. It's very, very small. Can you hear our cat on the other side of the door? Sorry, Astrid. I gotta keep working here. Alright, fine, Astrid, I'll let you in. 1 second, everyone. Hi, Astrid. Alright. Turns out she didn't want to come in. Oh, maybe she does now. Oh my gosh, this cat. Nope, she can't make her mind. It's like a politician just flip-flopping. It's like, I do want to come in. No, I don't want to come in. I'm gonna add another layer of lipstick on her here. And on her lower lip. Oh, something else. I'll once again be co-hosting Drawtober this year. So if you guys want to do an October challenge that's not as strenuous as all of Inktober or Drawhalloween or any of those, this one's gonna be a 7 prompt month challenge. Like every 4 days there'll be a new prompt roughly. And I'm really excited because we have most of the prompts already thought up. And we'll announce the calendar probably in August? Probably September 1st, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Astrid, are you in here? Come here, Astrid. Come here. You want to say hi to everyone? Come here. Come here. She's being a little camera shy for once. Astrid, come here. She's mad at us because it rained really heavy last night and she wants us to open the back door. But we gotta be careful with humidity because all the prints are in the basement right by that back door. So we try not to have the door open because that would ruin the prints probably. Astrid, come here. Oh boy, this cat, guys, I tell you. Oh, hello. Oh, Tigel's here. Hello, Tigel. Julie says, like you imagine a form in shadows and light, black areas and white areas? Yeah, for the most part. I think if you can separate the subject matter from being a person and look at it as a composition of values in shadow and light, I think it becomes a little easier than where to push it, because it might feel weird when you start rendering out and pushing areas darker, but then as the forms start to come together, you'll see how it works, and oftentimes it works very well. I mean, there are times where I've definitely rendered something and it did not look right everywhere, so don't always think that your value placement will save your drawing, because I've definitely had a few times where I trusted in placing values a little too heavily, and then I miscalculated some values and it turned out awful. So it'll happen, you know, all part of the journey of learning how to do art. Okay, the real trick here is going to be doing this other eye. It's one of the biggest challenges as a modern artist, or probably as an artist of any age and era, is if you do one eye that you really like, doing the other eye. Dun dun dun. I mean, thankfully, I do like how I did the right eye. So gotta kind of recreate some of that on this other eye here. Okay. Now sometimes I'll fill in an eye completely a little darker, and then I'll use my knead eraser and kind of lift it up. So like this. And it kind of creates this almost spooky, oh, am I delayed on my camera again? Let me refresh that. There we go. And if it's done right, you can really create this soft, kind of almost spooky fade in the eyeball itself, or in the iris of it. Do another pass on the lips here. So you can see how even throughout the drawing that I've been working on, I'm sure you guys are feeling the same if you've been drawing alongside me, is it's a lot of building up those layers and values slowly. Because she has such soft features that you want to be careful with how dark you go and not going too dark too quickly. Fidgety says, finally a drawing challenge I might be able to keep up with, lol. Yeah, I think this is one that in some ways it is simpler in terms of how much there is to do, or how complicated the actual forms are. In a lot of ways it's actually very simple, but the real challenge is once you start doing it, you're like, oh wow, this is actually a bit harder than I initially expected. I also feel like I'm making her angrier than she actually is. I gotta be careful with that. Oh, I know why. This side of the... Yeah, there we go. Remember, if you ever feel like an area is a little off, fix it right away. Because the fact that you can tell that something's wrong means that you can catch it and that you can edit it right away. Don't just leave something if you know it can be improved upon. Because if that becomes a habit, it'll become a habit in every piece you do, not just your studies. And that's something you definitely don't want to carry around with you. So she's actually been pretty fun to work on because of how soft the rendering challenge actually has to be. I feel like I haven't done this level of soft control in a long time when doing studies, because I feel like, or when doing portraits. Because like let me show you one of my latest drawings, kind of as an example. So this is normally how I draw my people, with like very heavy nose and eye areas, and I really like to focus on contrast, obviously. So going to her, where it has this softness to it, is kind of new for me too. Patates, or I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering your name. But he says, don't you think the photo is overexposed to consider it as good reference? Global shading might be difficult on the face. I don't think it's necessarily the best in terms of like for beginners. I do think this is more of like an intermediate advanced style of rendering from like you said, a very exposed, globally illuminated figure. But I still think this is a good one to have for any skill level to try out at least, and maybe see like, oh wow, like the features here, you really don't have to do much rendering to make it look like a nose, like a cleft or a cheekbone, all that other kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't think this is how most people will probably render things when they go to do their studies, but this is a very good example of a specific lighting scenario that is challenging, because I think it makes you really focus on pressure on the pencil and then how much value you're laying down as you're going through. So yeah, I do think this is a good challenge. I would say it's definitely not probably a good one specifically for beginners, but hopefully a lot of you guys are taking some good tips away from this. And I do apologize if this is a bit too difficult for some of you. Like I said, just use it as a learning experience, take what you can from it, and apply it to your next piece. Okay, I'm going to do some shading on her eyelashes here. She has very twiggy style lower lashes where they're kind of individually defined, which is nice. Because then you can kind of draw them one by one and give that cool look to it. Well, you know what? Her eyebrow really doesn't go that far in. It's more like here. Okay, I'm going to get into a soft render of the nose again, so gotta be a little careful, because as we keep talking about, the features are so soft. If you over render one area, it can throw off the whole face. Be very soft with how I do this. She looks pretty good. All right, maybe I'll step away from the face for a second. How much time do we got left? Let me look at my timer. Okay, we got 40 minutes, so we're past half, and we're getting to the final half hour here. I mean, technically, we're actually way under time. So, I mean, if you guys want like an extra 10 minutes, let me know in the comments, and we can definitely add an extra 10, because I didn't realize since I started on time, we are way ahead of schedule. And I don't mind this going a little longer, so that we could actually hit near the 4 o'clock mark here. There we go. I'm gonna have the background be a bit darker on this side too. And a lot of the decisions on where I add value, I think, just come from my gut reaction to seeing the image and where I think it would look pleasing. I think a lot of the time I could give you some nonsense about how, oh, well, because I've drawn it for so long, I know exactly where the contrast should go because of blah, blah, blah. A lot of the time I just trust my gut, and usually it works. There are definitely times where it does not, and I think I can be very open with you guys that, yeah, it doesn't always work out well. But the times it does work, I'm like, all right, that was fun. And if I make art too technical, I feel like I lose the enjoyment in it, and that would just destroy why I do art, because art's so much of a joy for me that I don't want to ruin that by making it too technical. I'm going to make this shadow also quite dark. kind of match the shadow under the eye here. Bye, Barbara. Take care, everyone. Fidji says, anything shot with glimmer glass in older film and photography gets an odd soft glass that definitely makes shading need a delicate touch. Agree. Okay, I will definitely add 10 minutes to the end of this. Let me reset this. So we're going to 46 minutes now. Because you're right, I did have the pre-sketch because I thought I'd be yammering and getting distracted too much with talking. But weirdly, I'm actually doing a pretty good job at talking and working, which is a rarity on these streams, might I add. There we go. I'm trying to think if I have anything else kind of fun to share with you guys. I think that was mostly all the stuff I got. Oh, but if you are looking for the stuff that I mentioned earlier with all the new prints, the pins, the puzzles, it'll be out at midnight on my Etsy tonight. And my Patreon backers will get 20% off as well. Also, I feel like I avoid Twitter, so I don't really know what's going on in terms of drama that usually happens on Twitter with apparently last week there was this whole I'm a nobody artist and I'm a somebody artist debate, and I literally just caught up on it last night because some of my friends were telling me about it, and there was a lot going on. There were a lot of very heated things said at one another, and I guess my only advice when I look at stuff like that is just to remember that, I mean, any form of calling someone names or trying to degrade them personally, I just don't think there's ever a time or place for that. And just to remember that there's a person on the other side of that screen, and even if you disagree with them fully, sometimes it is better just to walk away than to engage with it, because then you're bringing yourself down after a while. Because if you can tell that they are not budging and they're only trying to kind of drag you along for this conversation, I truly don't think it's worth it all the time. And I think there has come a point where you back out and you're like, you know what, have a good day, I agree to disagree with you, and then move on. Because there were some very heated discussions between artists, and it makes me sad because oftentimes I feel like we should be the most generous to want to help each other. Because I mean, even successful artists usually have had a long road where they came from and had to work to get either their jobs or a following count, whatever that might be. And usually these artists want to kind of pass that knowledge down and quote unquote like pass the torch down. And I don't think it's right, though, at the same time, for these artists that are established, if you want to call it that, to belittle younger artists or artists that do not have large following counts. So there was definitely wrong on both sides, 100%. But I think a lot of the times when I see a lot of this stuff, it just reminds me of, I feel like I should just be working and keep focusing on my own life in terms of how I can get better with my art, or reflect on things, if more important social issues like the BLM movement. I think it's good then to reflect on your own life and how you can be better or unlearn things in your past, things of that nature. All right, doing the hair is kind of fun for me because it has this wavy crimp. I have no idea how this is done. I feel like because I never style hair, I have no idea how they do this. I'm assuming it's like with hairspray and a lot of like pressing in ways. I have no idea. But I think it creates this really cool look. It's a really cool pattern. You don't see it done too often nowadays at all. I don't know if it's very damaging to the hair. Like I said, I have no idea. I do love the look of this. So it's kind of a fun wave to create when drawing. Fem says, haha, yeah, you did kind of cheat with having that sketch already in place. I think in the future I won't do that anymore. I realize that that's not, I gave myself an unfair disadvantage because I thought I'd be talking so much, and I do a lot of talking where I like don't draw and I'm like talking with my hands. But I haven't been doing a lot of that today, and I feel like I'm way ahead of schedule. So yeah, I won't do that again. I want to feel like we're drawing at the same pace, at the same start time. And if I happen to just go on a ramble where I'm talking with my hands, then that's my own fault. And I have to live with that. Eric says, hello, sorry for being late. How's it going? It's going really good. I'm having a great Wednesday so far. Like my family, or I shouldn't say my family, 3 of my cousins who are basically my 3 younger brothers are coming over tonight. We're going to play Catan in this really dorky game called Seasons that I love. Then obviously I have my Etsy sale going up at midnight. So I'm having a great Wednesday. How are you guys doing? Fem says, being on time, working while talking. I repeat, where did the real Tim go? Yeah, this is new year, new me. I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, 2020 was a new year, new me type scenario where it's either reflecting or changing career paths, whatever it might be. Do I use a blending stick? No, I normally don't. I'm not against them though. I think some artists use them so well. Like if you know oh gosh, I want to say her name's Eliza, but I always mispronounce it. But she uses a blending stump so well that I'm always a little jealous. And as much as I do use it from time to time on some things, I like the textured look and I like rendering everywhere. So I think it's just personal preference. It would definitely make me go faster. I mean, as like a efficiency perspective, yes, a blending stick would definitely make me go faster. But then it also creates that very soft, buttery look that I like to kind of create with the slow render. I feel like this sounds like a lame excuse, but there's just something about having that little bit of texture in the butter texture, or the butter rendering, that I like having. And oftentimes you don't get that with the blending stump. I guess sometimes I'll use my finger. Like if it's not super oily, I'll do like a quick render or a quick rub on some of the areas. And usually that will get me a slightly similar effect to a blending stump. Usually not as strong, obviously, but a little bit. A little bit. Sam says, what's the dorky game about? Catan, and what was it called? It's called Seasons. So it's, I don't even know how to describe it, but it is a card game, and I think it's wonderful, but it's really hard to introduce to people because there is a slight learning curve because you kind of have to know what the cards are to play correctly. So my old roommate Tyler showed it to me a few years ago, and I really liked it right away. And then my younger cousins, since it was even difficult to get them to try Catan, I was like, there's no way they'll try Seasons. And then slowly but surely, I got one of them into it, and then he played a lot, and then we got the other one to try it, and then the next one. Because I do think if it's a fun game, people will eventually learn it and wanna play it. But it is hard to recommend. But if you are into board games, specifically ones that have cards and are kind of reliant on card effects, that I would definitely try out this game. I think it's great because there's so many possibilities and twists and turns that can happen, and it's great. I like it. It's definitely kind of a numbers game though, so you also have to be somewhat good with understanding numbers, like quick math in a way. Which I'm sure as soon as I said that, maybe a lot of people were like, oh, nope, instantly no. And I totally get it. I totally get that. Wait, how much time we got? We still got 36 minutes. Guys, this is great. I feel like I can just get into fine rendering and detailing, which I usually don't have time to do on these streams. I'm going to go ahead and do just that then. So I'm going to go in and actually draw out some of these individual hair strands. I'm not going to draw every single one because then I think it kind of ruins the effect. But if you just have a couple areas in the hair where you kind of define it, it implies the rest of the hair. And that is what I'm going to try to do here. Fem says, I think some people forget how much words hurt. I almost quit my studies in my first year since a teacher said I was terrible. And now I'm graduated since I didn't want to do anything else. I don't agree with that method of teaching. I think, and if you see movies like Whiplash, and it's kind of the whole idea that a really harsh teacher and teaching style can get results better and faster. I do think there is merit and truth to that, but I think the emotional strain and damage it can do on someone is immense. And I know when I was in high school, I had a similar experience where the teacher was very, very harsh on me. And one time emailed my parents saying I wasn't a real artist, I was just a photocopy machine. And she was really harsh on me. Now, mind you, she was the best teacher I've ever had because I feel like I grew and I forced myself to get better so much quicker to try to impress her. So I feel like it does produce results, but I think because I was in a good mental state of mind, I was able to handle the critique. Where I think to have a teacher do that to someone not knowing what state they might be in mentally can be irreplaceably damaging. And I'm so glad you came back into it, Fem, because I don't think that's right that that teacher did that to you. And I think the best way to teach and to learn and grow is to lead by example, which I've always tried to embody that for whenever I've taught and been like a mentor at a workshop or whatever, and to try to see what path whoever I'm talking to is on, and then push them further in that direction. So if you can kind of tell they're into the animated style or something more cartoony, obviously it's not something I'm familiar with as much, but I know that there's a path for that type of person in that style. So I want to keep them going on that path. And I think to discourage them from being their authentic self would be a failure to myself, and then even more so a failure to that person, for sure. Can we get some of these subtle wrinkle details in? This is so nice having extra time. Now I feel even more guilty that I did the proportion sketch before the stream started. I think it all comes down to when I did the fish stream and I just hated how my fish looked. So ever since then I'm like, oh, maybe I should just spend like 15 minutes before the stream starts doing like a quick sketch. But I really haven't had that experience, and even when we did the male profile, I actually like how mine turned out, but for whatever reason this morning apparently I was nervous. I was like, oh, I'll do a quick sketch really quick. There we go. Fem says, there is a difference between constructive criticism and just bashing people. I know my work wasn't great, and a lot of teachers did say that, but most of them guided me instead of insulting me. Yep, I agree. That's the difference, is when you start to personally attack someone, I think they're losing sight of trying to help you, and it almost feels like they're projecting their own anger or their own lack of confidence or self-value, and it's almost like a complete lack of self-awareness on how much damage you could be causing to people. And I don't think someone that has that nature should be in a teaching position, because I think teachers should want more than anything to pass the torch of knowledge to their students, whatever subject it may be, like even outside of art. And obviously that's not always the case. And I'm sorry that did happen to you, Fem. All right, let's see here. I will say, there is something kind of nice about having the proportion sketch done before the stream started, is I feel like I can really get into rendering now and kind of doing some of the fine tuning, the shading that I normally do after the streaming ends. Because this part usually I go way slower. I feel like if doing the proportion sketch and the freehand stuff is like traveling down a freeway at 70 miles per hour, I feel like doing the rendering and the small details are like going 10 miles in a school district per hour, and you're being super careful. You're looking for kids because you don't want to hit them, and I just move at such a slower pace. So I think even within my own self, and probably a lot of you have learned of, okay, when I pick up my 0.2 mechanical pencil, or if I pick up my specific, whatever pencil you work slowest in, I know I'm not going to be as effective and efficient. So is it the right time for me to pick up this pencil now? And I'll do that with myself with my my mechanical pencil a lot. Like I said, this is really nice right now to have some extra time to do the minor details. Because I feel like this is where I have the most fun in the rendering stage, where doing the initial line art, not always the most fun for me. And I know some people love that stage, but not necessarily for me so much. I like the rendering stage a bit more. Fem says, the funniest thing that was in my internship, supervisor praised my ability for taking criticism, which I didn't think I could do well, because of that one teacher saying I couldn't handle his. Yeah, don't let that one opinion like completely ruin your self-esteem and how you view yourself. And I'm sorry once again that you had a teacher that really had such that negative effect on you. If there is any kind of light at the end of the tunnel though for that situation, I've often been told that we learn the most from our enemies more so than what was the exact quote? It was something how when we're overcoming, I guess it doesn't even have to necessarily be a person necessarily. It could just be an idea, or like for example, if your parents always tell you you won't make money in art and that it's a career that is a waste of time, if you then make a lot of money doing art and prove that it's a career worthwhile, you were kind of able to overcome the adversity that you had set in your mind before that. So sometimes it can be really good because it pushes you and motivates you. But I would say a lot of times though, a lot of people, it really gets them down. But I'm glad that you were able to be one of the ones that kind of overcame it. I might make the hair a little darker too. So remember, if you guys are working alongside me, as soon as this timer ends, we're just under a half hour, if you could post it in the Discord on the stream follow along channel, and then I'll go ahead and critique it live. Yeah, actually she has really dark contrast in her hair waves as well. So I feel like I can keep going back in and just making it slightly darker without totally ruining the look. In a way, it actually adds to it. There we go. And I might leave some of the areas that are like really light in the picture be almost pure white in my drawing, just to add a little more contrast. Amy says, "Hey Amy, I got the commissioned drawings today. Thank you so much. They are beautiful. Well, I hope you enjoy them. Thank you for commissioning me." If any of you watching right now are interested in getting a drawing from me, I open up commissions in December. I did way too many of them though last December. I'm still working on some of them. I have like a couple more left, but I took on 12, actually closer to 13 because I took on another one. Way too many for me. But this December, I'll probably open about 2 or 3 slots. So if you want a drawing from me, be sure to check around like the second week of December, and I will open up my commissions then. Assuming that I finish the ones that I have to still do now. Which I would hope by December I would have those all done. Ooh. The other thing about being a little further ahead is I can take more of my time like backing up from the drawing and kind of analyzing it a bit deeper on the values and where not only my proportions are, but where I'm laying out my values throughout the drawing. Because oftentimes when I do streams, I almost am rushing that stage. Oh, this is great. You know what? I might even switch to a darker B pencil. I'm going to try a 3B. So I'm going to try to 3B some of these darker areas. So bear with me, because I normally don't go this dark on stream in case I ruin it. But I'm feeling weirdly extra confident today. Shadow under the nose. Fem says, "No apology necessary. As someone with low self-esteem, that was rough, but don't worry, I learned a great deal about trusting myself and my skills because of that whole thing." That is so great to hear. Good job, Fem. Good job. There we go. She almost looks like a mix between like a modern day Christina Aguilera and like Reese Witherspoon in a way. Yeah, this is such a strange soft drawing for my edges. I might even try to, I'm gonna soften up some of these edges here, which I normally don't do. I like a nice crisp line on the edge. But you know what? I'm gonna try to do something a little new today. especially the little soft shadows around where the shirt overlaps the skin here. There we go. Oh, Gwen Stefani, yeah, I see that too, actually. Oh, especially in her, what was that music video? The Cool one? Yeah. I think that's my favorite actual music video from her in terms of style, because I think I've always been attracted to that old glamour, like going for a bike ride in the vineyard type style. I'm kind of a sucker for it, admittedly. And then obviously that style of haircut, even this style of haircut, I just love the look of it. It's like formal, but still being almost like sassy in a way. If you know what I mean, I'm really into it. There we go. This is so weird. I feel like I'm done and we still have like 20 minutes. So I'm like, all right, let's see here. I guess I can go and just do a little etch there, a little pencil stroke here. Oh no, I'm third handing again. Let me refresh my camera. Oh, you know what? It got disconnected. What the heck is going on? We'll try that again. Let me make sure my USB is plugged in. Okay, connect in here. This is so weird. I don't know why it's not. Oh. I don't know why it started working just now. That was so weird, guys. Okay. Sam says, some people channel their third eye, you channel your third hand. Fem says, guess the camera couldn't handle the gorgeous staring into its soul. I never thought I had a pretty nose. Are you talking about her? You guys are so funny. Yeah, I think one of the tricks with her nose, especially in this image, is not to define the nostril on the right here. I think that's what helps, at least with my own, I think that helped kind of create that illusion of depth. I'm going to switch to my 2H again, though. Let me do another pass of this soft gray. So we have about 15 minutes left now. So if you guys are working on it, keep pushing, keep pushing. I'm going to try to butter up some of the shading and rendering on the skin here. Make it as smooth and soft as possible. So I guess if you guys have any comments or questions, otherwise I'm gonna think of something to rant about, which usually is just a movie. You know what? I might make the hair here darker. I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna experiment here. I'm gonna make this darker. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna make the hair darker here, so it adds that nice contrast against the skin. Because I have a bad habit of just making hair blank, because I really like the contrast that it can create, and I feel like I overdo that now. So I think on this one, I'm gonna try to at least fill in some of the areas of value. There we go. Do I like that? Yeah. No, I do. Do I? Yes. No? Yes. Yes, I do. Fem says, it was a compliment on your nose. Their noses too, but don't sell yourself short. Well, I don't, this is such a weird thing, but as a kid, my family, specifically my sister and some other people, would say I had a pig nose because my nose was more like this. So they said the joke was if you did like a slope, I'd be like a ski jump because my nose went up at the end. Weirdly, as I've gotten older, it's become more of like a triangle in profile. But the front, it still has kind of that button circularness to it, but weirdly from the side, it does look more angular. So I always liked my profile much better than my straight on. I don't know, but thank you. I'm still weird about getting compliments because my whole life I grew up feeling just very unattractive in a lot of ways, and just weirdly accepting it in high school that I would always be kind of the weird looking one, and then kind of growing older and being like, well, you know what, if I can't rely on my looks, but I'm going to rely on my personality and how I treat people and my skill as an artist and my hard work and determination. And like that was my way of trying to make connections with people rather than just pure vanity. But now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, you know what? I think I look like my parents, like a mixture of them, and I really love and respect them. And um, if that's what I carry on, if that's what I look like, I'm proud to carry that lineage and that look throughout. I always think of, if you know, there's a drag queen named Detox. I watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, and Detox has this very long, very triangular nose, and they would talk about how much they hate it, and they would get Botox and things injected in them everywhere. I'm talking even their bicep. But they decided at one point that they were going to keep their nose because their dad also had a very strong, prominent nose, and that it was a reminder of him. And I think about that all the time, and how you can be proud of your features even if they're not what is the standard beauty protocol. So I'm very proud of my like round features and my big cheeks and my super curly hair that is unmanageable at times. Try to make something that may be seen as maybe not the most attractive, or something that you find to be a problem area about yourself, and try to see why that could actually be a good thing and how unique that can actually be. Anyways, I don't know why I'm ranting about that. Sam says, same thing happened with my nose. Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, I definitely grew up with like more of a button nose, but it definitely angled out. Fem says, yeah, a lot of people feel like that, but honestly, we are all beautiful. Throws confetti and sets off fireworks. Yeah, I think if you can find beauty within the differences, you'll just be a much happier person if looks is something that really bothers you. Some of my favorite people that I've ever met, I mean, I'm not even trying to like badmouth them, but some of my favorite people I've ever met in my life have been what most people would consider typically unattractive. I find those people to be far more interesting, and I would rather listen to their stories, honestly. Because usually they talk about things that aren't vanity affiliated. They're talking about film or ideas or philosophy. And I think because they don't have the looks to rely on, and I felt the same way growing up, that you find other things to become interested in.
Done streaming?
No. That was with my cousins. Elena says, yeah, I used to not like my nose, but my relatives have the same nose, so I grew to like it. Definitely like that I got my hair genes from my grandparents instead of my parents. I wish I got my grandparents' hair because they had very straight, very organized hair. And then I just got like a bush. I got a bush of hair that I've learned to tame for the most part, but it definitely would have been easier if I would have just been born with straight hair. But I guess it kind of aligns with my personality not exactly being straight, so maybe it's like a reflection of who I am. Veggie says, it's surprising to hear you don't find yourself particularly attractive. When I see your work, I see a lot of your own features in your art. When I noticed that, I was quite taken with that. Well, thank you. I think a lot of the times it's because when I do figures and characters, I take reference photos of myself in those poses. So I feel like it's almost unintentionally, almost subconsciously, I'm putting in those features because that's the reference I'm using. Because I've always taught, especially when I was at CG Cookie, that you should take references of yourself or a free walking reference library, so why not use that to your advantage? So I do end up having a lot of characters that have similar features as myself. I mean, even the females. And yeah, like I said, it's been a long road for me, and I think it was around like 24 I stopped really caring about looks as much, because then I kind of realized I was getting a lot of attention in social media for my work and what I do, and then it was kind of that reassurance of that was my way of connecting with people, not how I look, not how pretty or attractive I am, but rather my ideas and my thoughts. And I really believe in that's going to be how I'm going to connect with people the rest of my life. So the idea of like trying to get pretty or look good became very much not relevant or important to me anymore. So, I mean, I hope a lot of you guys, if you're struggling with that, can kind of find that same clarity or that same inner strength of not looking at artificial things, in my opinion, like looks, to validate who you are as a person or your self-worth or importance. Because I'm telling you, it's not. Fem says hi to the still streaming cousin. He's the one that's basically my little brother. Yeah, that's Jacob. I call him Jacobe. Elena says, for me it's opposite. My parents have stick straight hair, but I dislike the thinness more about theirs. I got the thick, loose curls from my grandparents, not as curly as yours. If I had just like big, like wavy curly hair, I would love it. I would grow it out past Jesus length. I would have it like way down here, but it just kind of like froze out. It's more having to manage it than it is like appreciating it, and I don't have a lot of time. Like I said, I'm not a very vanity person, so I don't want to spend a lot of time in the bathroom getting my hair done. So I just keep shaving it really short so that way I can just focus on drawing. And I feel like I'm getting that way even with clothes, because I've been buying just a lot of like blank t-shirts, especially just like blank black t-shirts, kind of the Steve Jobs theory, where rather than obsessing about what to wear today, you just have a bunch of the same thing. That way when you go to the closet, you just pick like your black shirt, you put it on, and then you're good for the day. And it eliminates that time and that stress having to think about what you're going to wear. I know it may sound silly, but if this is something that stresses you out, or if you feel you spend a lot of time wasted, or if you're spending a lot of time that you feel is wasted picking out clothes, just try that. Honestly, it might work for you. Let's see here. I feel like it's heading in a better direction. I mean, especially when we see people with very unique, distinct traits and features kind of become pushed more into the supermodel world, and then people of different sizes, especially now, I feel like it's becoming more widely acceptable. So I'm hoping we're going more in that direction. Elena says, I feel very similar to you in my features. I don't mind my looks, but I struggle with two different very visible skin diseases, which make me struggle with my looks when people keep commenting. Oh yeah. That would make me feel uncomfortable, because then they're not really seeing me for who I am. They're seeing, you know, the literal surface level of who I am. And I feel bad for you, because that has to be frustrating. So I feel for you on that. I'm sorry. Fidji says, it's definitely more validating to be seen for capability over something surface level as looks, even when I have a pastel goth peacock wardrobe. That's a new one for me to hear. I like that though. Okay, I think I'm gonna just be done. I think I'm just gonna get ready for you guys posting in Discord. So if you guys are feeling like you're almost done, we have about 2 minutes and 22 seconds left. And we'll go ahead and get onto the critiques. So finish up your own. We're going to go ahead and get onto the critiques. Actually, wait, I'm going to make this a little darker here. Nice little gradation out. Bam! Alright, yeah, I feel good about this one. This is probably one of my favorite outcomes on a stream I've ever done. Once again, it's probably because I did the proportions before I started the stream. Won't do that again. I realize that it's not fair. So, let's go ahead and set things up on the screen here. You have 1.5 minutes left. Let me get Discord open. Let me open up Photoshop. Oh man, it is pouring now here. Might open the window so you guys can hear it. I always like the sound of rain. If that's too distracting, let me know. I really like the sound of rain. I'm one of those people. Jonathan says, oh man, joining this a bit late. Big love from Scotland. Troops. We're sending love from Wisconsin back. Welcome, welcome, Jonathan. Actually, Jonathan, your profile went through yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? You have some great stuff. I really like the book that you're working on. I hope that the Kickstarter and everything goes well. Because I think you're working towards it. At least that's the impression I got looking at your stuff. But keep at it. Looking good. Okay, guys, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Now remember to post in the stream follow along channel. Oh, Felix, I see you wrote, I'm going to do this one proper with a range of pencils and an actual eraser this time. That's right, because last week you didn't have that available. Yeah, I felt pretty good. The only pencils I used today, actually I did use kind of a range. I used a 3B, a 2H, HB, my 0.2, and then the mono eraser. Okay, everyone, start posting and let's start doing the critiques. So I guess for my own, I think the big challenge for me was figuring out what to do with the hair, I guess, because to be honest, this was probably the most streamlined I've ever been on a stream. I actually felt pretty good about it throughout, so it's one of those few times where I'm like, yeah, got it. I don't know, I feel good about it. I definitely think if I look at it maybe later, I could probably add some more details and rendering and values to it, but as of right now, I feel pretty good about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up Discord here. Okay, so if you followed along, post it in this channel, the stream follow along, and then I'll go ahead and pull some of them into Photoshop to paint over. Oh yeah, really quick tip, if you guys work with Photoshop, I use actions all the time. When I was doing my cards, it's a really easy way. So let's say rather than having to save every time going to like File, Save As, writing in whatever it is, making sure it's a JPEG, if you set up your actions, and I might make a tutorial on how to do this, all you do is you make sure that this is highlighted, and you just click play. And it'll do all of that, and it'll save in the folder that you have it set to, and it's already done. Anyways, that was like a quick little thing, because I was a teacher in Photoshop for like 6 years, so I always try to find how to be more efficient and effective working with that software. Let's see here. From Hexadecimal, after the last follow along person, I focused a bit more on the hair. Also my first time trying to draw with actual art pencils instead of a mechanical one. Ooh. I think you did what I did at first, where I made her look just a little mean. And I think it's because of the way that she's looking at the camera, where it's like her head is slightly angled down. So I think one thing that could help, especially looking at the reference here, is looking at the line of the eyes. You know what? I'm going to pull this into Photoshop. So now looking at yours, I think it's good to do like side-by-side comparisons. Obviously, I think for yours, you weren't focusing so much on value as you were on proportion and technique in that way. So I think you did a good job with the nose, which was really the tough part on not drawing the bridge as much and relying on that underlying shadow. I still think I would make the underlying shadow a little stronger. Let me change my brushes here. I'm gonna get my skin brush. So I think having a stronger shadow underneath, and like you gotta be careful because something like this could make it look like a mustache, and you really don't want it to look, you know, inappropriate, because it almost could look like a Hitler mustache. You want to make sure it reads as a shadow, and you want to be careful with how you do that. But what I was trying to explain earlier is you can see how her eyes are on this plane. I feel like on yours, the eyes are not on the same plane. I feel like this eye should be lowered quite a bit. And then even with the lips, yours is like a straight line for the part of the lip, where if you look at hers, it's kind of like a curve. It's literally like one of those simple smile lines, and then it's just enhanced by a lipstick in a way. So I would look at that. You did say you focus on hair, so I would keep working on it. I like how you have a lot of these individual lines, but I would keep pushing some of the curve here just to really emphasize the shine in the middle and that highlight, because that's what's going to give the illusion of hair, is when you focus on the highlight here and then kind of have it trail off into the dark part of the values in the hair. And yeah, I think also focusing on more of the harsh shadows. At least, you know what, actually you did a pretty good job in other places, but then definitely in like the hair, pushing some of the shadows here too. So yeah, good job. Oh, there are a lot of you today. All right, let's see here. Adia, ooh, here's a nice soft buttery one. So I think very similar to the last critique, I think looking at the placement of the eyes, once again, she has a slightly downhill, and yours, it almost goes up. Yours is almost like this. So I think this just comes down to the beginning during the proportion stage and trying to line things up in accordance to one another, and like really studying the reference image and then looking at where things are tilted. And because this almost gives the impression that she's like looking, like she's tilting her head up because of the eyebrows and the eye placement, but in reality she's just kind of tilting her head down. And I think same with the lips. I think the curves are just a little weird, because once again, the tilt of your head is more up, where when you tilt your head down, see how it creates, you can look at like the corners of the mouth and then make a line connecting them. And if you look at yours, see how it's tilted in the opposite direction. Just little things to look at, but I really like the rendering style you did this in. It's very soft, very buttery. And I like how the edge is kind of a lost edge. And then you pull in a stronger edge in areas of focus. So that's really nice. Overall, yeah, this looks pretty great. I think the main critique is just focusing on those initial proportions and trying to line things up. Ooh, Eden. Ooh. Okay. So what my initial impression of it was, the face looks almost like stretched out a little bit, and I think it would help to really add more of a forehead and like kind of lower the eyes down. So I think these could be lowered. And then same with the chin, feels a little pulled down and a little stronger. It feels a little thicker. I think if you just kind of trimmed it, I think it would give more of that look to the reference image. You do have a good angle with the eyes and the lips. I think the nose may have been a struggle for you, because the actual point of the nose should have been lower than the nostril, where yours is kind of on the same plane. But if you look at the reference, the nose is just a dip lower than the nostril area. And then I think obviously the hair is kind of pushes too much into the face. I think I would have pulled it over quite a bit so that there's more of the skin showing. But overall, good job, Eden. Zadric inserts a random creature instead of the lady. Yeah, I think you nailed the reference perfect. I mean, these are some fun shapes. You see a lot of like curves right next to sharp points. I always like that in creature design, like a mix of shapes and elements. Ooh, this was, hey, Corey. I was actually able to follow a long day, struggled with the mouth. Only used a 2H so far. Oh, then you're going to love working with a B pencil on top of this. So Corey, you probably work very similar to I do, where I like to work with an H pencil first and then kind of darken on top and add those layers. So you're going to really have a good time with that. I think when I look at yours, it's similar to the last one. It reads a little strong in areas, a little thicker. Same with that chin. And it's tough because her face the angle that it's at makes some of her facial features look larger than they might be. It's like her nose and her chin. But I still think I would have pulled this cut just a touch more in. And then on yours, I really want to see you kind of darken that upper lip and then the lower part of the lower lip to really enhance the shine of the lipstick and push those darker values. Same with the shadow under the nose. I think you can almost eliminate some of the lines on that side of the nose and then really push the areas near the eyelash and the shadow that goes into here. So have fun with the darker pencils. And if this is something that you're not usually comfortable doing, I think this is a perfect example because it's not a portfolio piece. It's not, something for a project. It's just a practice piece. So like really have fun pushing dark pencils. I would even recommend going like a 3B and like really trying to see how you can push it. And I would push the areas that are in a reference that are close to black. I would almost do the same thing with your study of it. So I'm very excited to see where you go with this one. Unix says, this thing sent me straight into an existential crisis. Wanted to rip it up a lot, had to take multiple breaks, probably just drew on it for 15 minutes and nearly started crying. I don't feel bad though, please, I'm just easily frustrated. I can't draw eyes and lips and hairs, proportions are kind of off and I hate rendering the details, hence the not done hair, and it got really big again, so yet another fish. Probably should have gone digital. I haven't done anything traditional since the last follow along stream, so I guess being rusty was another problem. I do like, I want that term to be the new thing of like when you don't like how your drawing comes out on a stream, it's the fish. It's a fish. Kind of how like people call cars that they think are problems lemons. I think bad drawings for us will now be fish. This isn't bad. I like how strong and confident you are with dark, bold values. So keep that up. And I think just carry it into these other areas. I think the biggest thing for you might be is like the initial underdrawing, the proportions and trying to get the accuracy close might be an issue. So maybe even look up tutorials on like how to do quick sketches of like, circles and pushing where the values will be and the proportions and blah, blah, blah. And then how to draw them light enough that you can cover them and then eventually erase them, because I think that might be where a lot of the issue comes from with you getting frustrated with it. And I know I get that when drawing is I get so frustrated if my initial drawing doesn't look right, but it's usually because I don't have a strong underdrawing. And they always say you can't have a strong building without a strong foundation. So always think of that when you start a study or a realistic person or character. Try to have a really strong proportion and accurate design first and then build on top of it. Whoa, Felix. Oh, this looks great. So Felix says, I also made her sort of too mean looking and I ran out of time towards the end, so I went more with the blank hair approach. It's always a good approach, in my opinion. Let me look at yours here. So I will say, immediately I could definitely tell that this was the actress. I think you have a very strong sense of control on where to put values, and I think now that I've seen you do a few of these streams, I think you do have a very, very noticeable knack for knowing how to draw and where to push value. You just come across to me as like a very not controlled, a very confident artist in terms of value placement, and it's really cool to see each week on what you do. So with this one, there's a lot of strength going on. I think my biggest critique, honestly, would be pushing some of the proportions to be a little more like the reference. I feel like you applied your own style to it, which is really cool because I can see like this is maybe how you draw people with like a little smaller features. It almost has a slight anime undertone in terms of like making the lips a little smaller. The face is very neutral, but this photograph also is very neutral lit, so I can understand why that might be the case. Because I think with yours, it's like the lips I definitely think should be a little longer and pulled that side of the smile up a bit more. I like how you did the nose. I think for the eyes, to make them a little more approachable, which was difficult on this one. I think pushing the iris down on this one, then filling it in with that lighter gray here. I think that would have helped out, even though it's a small thing. And then I would have loved to see how you would have done the hair, because I think you would have done a really cool job with rendering the waves out. So I think in a lot of ways, the biggest critique probably is just time management. And because this was such a hard portrait to draw, because our features were almost like seemingly easy, it was a facade. This was actually a really difficult face to draw. Maybe that's where a lot of the time went, because I think looking at this, I know you could do a really cool job with some of the waves, not even having to render all of them, but just some of them. And I think it would be cool to see this if you had like another half hour, you know. But good job, Felix. Alpa says a little bit disappointed because something feels off, like the look of her eyes or the nose a little bit too up her lips. I need to work on. I know that's a screenshot, but the quality of my phone is a no-go. Let's see what you got here. Oh, this is great. Yeah, I think you got a lot of the proportions right. And I think the only one that kind of stands out to me is the eyes seem a little much on the same line. Like if I go pupil to pupil, they feel very much on the same line, where there should just be just an ever slight angle to them. And I think that's why this eye might look a little angry, is because it has like this tilt down, where on hers it's more of a straight across. So I think having this more this way, and then that way the shadow that cuts kind of at that angle here would give more of that softer expression. And then same with the eyebrows, kind of lifting that. I think this is great. I think maybe pushing in the head a little on this side. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think maybe even pushing the top of her head to be more round, and then pushing the hair in here. Because I did that too at first. I made it more puffy than it actually was. But I think this would help kind of rein in the hair by having it kind of edged out here. It kind of gives that turn to the head. But I think this looks great. You have a really good soft render to your style as well. Good job. Dan Spaghetti. So I think similar to the first couple that I did, the line of the eyes, I think maybe this was a struggle for a lot of you guys, because her head is slightly tilted down. It does create this weird angle to a lot of the facial features. So even on yours, I think the line should have been more like that, similar to here. And obviously it's easy to see when I have Photoshop open and you have the reference side by side of pencil drawing. And when you're doing a pencil drawing, it's not easy to see that all the time. So if maybe a trick that I like to do is I'll take a picture of what I'm working on and then bring it in Photoshop really quick and just kind of compare and contrast there. Or I'll even overlay the reference image at a lower opacity over, and that way you can see the differences in proportions, and then I can go back to my pencil drawing and edit there. So yeah, I think rotating almost the entire head, that actually maybe that's how it was meant to be. But yeah, I still think the eye should be pulled lower, and I think kind of cutting into here a bit more. And then I think the biggest thing here is pushing that hair out more. I think would have helped. Some really good shading in there. I really pushed the darks with your darker pencils. Try like a 2 or 3B. And then that upper lip, I would just make almost solid. Because if you can see the outline on the lip, it almost looks like, you know how when girls sometimes, or not just girls, I shouldn't say that. Whenever a person puts a liner on the top of their lip and then fills it in, but the liner is slightly darker, so you can always see the line kind of outlining the lips. Try to treat the way that you would render lips like here in a way that would be more realistic, where it would be more filled in. And same with the lower lip. And then you can really emphasize those highlights that are on it. And then don't forget the shadow underneath the lips, which kind of emphasizes the little break between the chin and the lips. But yeah, good job. Man, there were a good bunch of you today doing this one. I also like that you guys are giving each other encouragement. That's great. Okay, Larissa. Hey, Larissa. So this is the second time that I did this because the first was very different and I can see a lot of differences, but I tried to do the third time and I wasn't quite feeling, so I thought, yeah, I'm done. Maybe because I was hungry. It was pretty hard doing this portrait. Sometimes I feel like I'm understanding. Sometimes I feel like I don't. Like I said, I think this one was unintentionally harder than I was expecting it to be. I think because it has that soft lighting that old Hollywood has, it really makes rendering features very difficult because then you have to like soft render and imply things very heavily. I wouldn't get down though. I feel like you're doing a good job at like placing your proportions and, you know, doing the underdrawing strong first. I think where this may have got you a little confused is with soft rendering, like this line on this side of the nose, I would almost try to get rid of it because you see how soft it is on that side, and it's such a subtlety that I wouldn't even make too much of a mention of it. Same with the bridge here and then the forehead. Because your proportions are pretty good. I would say there's some things that could be adjusted, but overall, I think where it got you was the shading, and I could see where maybe that was frustrating. So even like the pocket here, even though you did it pretty soft, it's still strong enough where I think I would soften it up, so it's not as bold. And then for the lips, same thing with a lot. I mean, you did kind of fill it in, but I think the smile here goes a little too high, and I would just push it to be like a subtle Mona Lisa smile. So this one was definitely difficult. And I think next week, because we're doing the turn bark into a woodland creature type stream, it'll be more like creative focused. So I'm very excited to see what you guys do that normally do these weekly follow-alongs with me when given more of like a creative task. And I'm very excited to see what happens with that. And I think similar to what I talked about with the last one, when you outline the lips, it looks kind of strange. And then same when you outline the eyes, you see how you have this really harsh line around the entirety of the inside of the eye. When you look at the reference, there really isn't a line separating the skin and the eyeball. And I think learning how to create that transition would be beneficial, and to really focus on like the placement of eyelashes and things like that to help define where the skin begins and the eye ends, things like that. But overall, good job. And I do think with the hair, it felt like it may have been a little rushed. I think just slow down and like really focus on the curls and the waves, and things like that might really help, because I can see you try to do this like curl in the front here, but really the curls are defined by these heavy blocks of darker contrast pushing right against, again, the light, and then the strokes of the pencil could go in that motion, where yours go in like a down motion. It should be more in this motion. So yeah, I think that's all of them. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming to this live stream. Let me change this over. There we go. Okay, thank you guys so much for coming to this live stream. Like I said, I do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Next week, we'll be doing the creative woodland creature creation, and I'm really excited to see where you guys take your creativity. So if you want to find your own bark, you have a week to do so. That is the task, that's the mission. So find a piece of bark or a tree stump or something in nature that is bark and tree related, and we're going to turn that into a creature, and I'm very excited to see that. So if you want to join next week, we'll do it at 2 p.m. Central Time. Okay, I don't really have any big announcements, but I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And yeah, if you are waiting for my new prints or pins or puzzles, they'll be out at midnight tonight Central Time. Okay, take care everyone, and I hope you have a lovely day.